My name is Jane, and working the night shifts is what I always preferred. I worked at Maplewood Care Home. It was a fairly big home which had 40 bedrooms, 2 lounges, and 2 dining rooms. It was a comfortable and loving home. I enjoyed the night shifts. They were 12-hour shifts, and I only did 2 a week. I was looking forward to my shift as I was working with my favorite colleague, Emma. Once everything was completed, we would always chat and pass the night away. We got on shift at 9 and had our handover. There was nothing major and everything was okay. I headed out to put out fresh water jugs and Emma was doing the 9:30 check. Time passed, we did the laundry and cleaning, and by 12:30 we had done mostly everything. Only a few things we had to do, but we left them throughout the shift to give us things to do to help pass the time. It soon came to the 1 o'clock round. I started one end, and Emma started the other. It was going smoothly until I entered room 12, and the lady was standing at the end of her bed whispering something. I asked her if she was okay, and assisted her back to bed. Coming to the end of the round, I had noticed a shadow walk behind me. I turned around expecting a resident, but there was no one. Of course, I investigated, but again, there was nothing. The hallways were clear, and so were the toilets. Something didn't feel right. We headed back downstairs to the lounge where we sat and kept a listen out for call bells. 3 in the morning, room 12 had rang their call bell. I gulped and asked Emma if she could come with me as I was a little frightened. As we entered the room, the resident was scratching at the walls with blood on her hands. My stomach dropped, and sweat started to form on my forehead. I could tell Emma was scared as her hands were trembling. We walked over to her and helped her get into bed. As we sat her down, she pushed us both off. She started ripping at her bedsheets and screaming. I pressed the emergency bell and the shift leader and other carers came running up. We all managed to settle her and get her into bed. We went to the staff room to discuss and do some paperwork, as what we saw was not normal. The resident has never done anything like that. The rest of the shift felt like days. Nothing else happened, really. Only a few noises which seemed to be nothing. It was the end of the shift and me and Emma were glad to go home. I laid in my bed and was thinking to myself, I never told Emma, but I went to the bathroom on shift and my back had a large scratch on it. It was not the resident as I would have felt it, and with my clothes on, she wouldn't have been able to get through. It was not normal, and in my opinion, I think she was possessed. The night shift at the gas station was usually uneventful, especially when you were alone. As the clock approached midnight, the normal sounds of the store seemed to fade away, leaving me in an unusual silence. I went about my routine, stocking shelves and tidying up, but the sense of unease was growing. It was as if the darkness outside was making its way into the store. And then, I heard it, a soft, barely audible noise coming from the back of the store. At first, I brushed it off and assumed it was the wind outside, but as it grew louder, it became impossible to ignore. With each step towards the source of the sound, dread consumed my stomach. The dim light seemed to flicker, casting shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. When I reached the storage room, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the door handle. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to run as far away as possible. But something compelled me to push the door open and step inside. The room was plunged into darkness, broken only by the faint light of the emergency exit sign. Peculiar shadows reflected onto the walls, and I knew something wasn't right. And then, I saw it. A strange figure lurking in the corner, barely visible in the little light that there was. It stood perfectly still, its form covered in darkness. Fear hit my throat, almost taking the breath from my lungs. I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat, trapped by terror. The figure seemed to sense my fear, and it moved, moving slowly towards me in an unnatural way. Each step sent a shiver down my spine. I stumbled and fell backwards, my heart pounding in my chest, but the figure kept coming. Its eyes glowed in the darkness like twin points of fire. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. leaving me alone in the darkness once more. I stumbled out of the storage room, my heart racing and my breath coming in ragged gasps. The sense of death that had gripped me refused to let go, clinging to me like a shadow that could not be shaken. From that night on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking in the darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the lights, seemed to be a warning that danger was near. And though I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, I knew deep down that the terror of that night shift would stay with me forever, a dark shadow cast over my soul by the horrors lurking in the night. My name's Emily and I work a normal 9-to-5 job. But on one Friday I decided to stay on and work into the night as I was falling behind on some work. I work in a small office. It's nice and quiet, and I get on with all my colleagues. With all the workload I had, I knew I was going to be there for ages. I didn't want to do any over the upcoming weekend, so I wanted it all done and ready for Monday. I started okay. I had my coffee and lots of snacks, with my peaceful ambient music playing in the background. But things soon took a turn for the worst. It was about 2 o'clock and I heard what seemed to be a door shut. The office was not big, with a few computers, a small kitchen area, and a small toilet area. Something didn't feel right. I felt uneasy. I had the main light on in the office and the other lights were off, so it was dark in some areas. I took my phone and used the flashlight. I wandered slowly through the lonely office. There was nothing. I took a deep breath and felt relieved. I carried on for another hour. Getting through my work, I was interrupted by an error on my computer. It was glitching as if it had been hacked. As I tried loading up my work, it had all been deleted. I wanted to cry. I sat in silence, trying to take in what had happened. It was silent. The only noise that could be heard was me breathing heavily in anger. The silence was soon broken by the noise of the bathroom sink being turned on, the sound of water gushing out the tap. I jumped back into my seat, clenching my hands to my chair. I froze. I knew someone was here, and that I was not alone. I picked up my phone and tried dialing. Help. I had no signal. This wasn't normal. I've always had a signal there. I started to feel faint from the fear. I looked around for anything that could be used as a weapon. I saw a pair of scissors. I snatched them from the table and walked my way to the bathroom. As I opened the door, there was nothing, just the tap running. I lowered my arm and took a deep breath and turned the tap off. The lights were turned off and then turned back on. My eyes were drawn to the mirror above the tap. There was a note which said, "You think you can escape from me? I've been watching your every move. You can't run from the past." The lights went back out, and I noticed a woman figure behind me in a hoodie. The darkness covered her face. I turned around as an instinct and then fell backwards into the wall. The woman ran out and was not seen again. I spoke to my boss, and I had my suspicion about who it was. Going back a year ago, me and a colleague were best friends. We had joined at the same time, and she had always wanted to be promoted to project manager. Unfortunately, I was chosen as. I was more suited for the role. She never spoke to me again, handed in her notice, and never came back. During the night shift, when all of this happened, it was the year anniversary of me being promoted. That's why I suspect it was her. The police were informed, and security was put in place to ensure she would not be able to enter or come near the building. Nothing has happened since, but I do fear she will try to attack again. I have now been a nurse for 2 years, but I will always remember my first night shift, not long after being newly qualified. I worked 4 on and 4 off. I worked 2 mornings and 2 nights. I was on my last shift for my block. The hospital is located in a remote area. It's only a little hospital, which makes it creepy. Bear in mind, this is my first block of 4 as a qualified nurse. On my morning shift, I was warned by my fellow nurses that the night shifts were scary. They said they see and hear scary things. I brushed it off and thought they were joking with me. Also, the fact my first night shift went great. The night started well. I did my checks and some paperwork that needed to be completed. Time passed and I attended to a few patients. At 3 in the morning, I went to do my checks again and I noticed the lights had started to flicker, which was weird. I thought nothing of it and blamed it on a faulty bulb. Carrying on with my checks, I noticed a couple of rooms were empty and my patients had disappeared. I started to feel weird, as if something wasn't right. I went to grab my colleague, and as I turned round the corner, an old woman was walking across the corridor in a nightdress. I ran to her, and as I got to the end, there was no one. I walked down the hallway. I suspected she had gone. Then realization had hit me. We did not have an elderly lady patient. I had to get a cup of water and take a seat as I was losing my mind. I had told my colleague and she laughed and just said I was tired. I assured her that I wasn't tired, and I knew what I saw. I decided to carry on considering no one believed me. I sat at a little desk and did some computer work. It was now 4:30 in the morning, and I heard whispers coming from the room behind me. I approached slowly, and as I entered, no one was there. I started to question myself if I was just tired, but then I heard it. Someone whispered my name, a voice I'd never heard before. It was deep and dark. My blood ran cold. Just as I was about to leave the room, the door slammed shut on my face, making me fall to the floor. My colleagues came running in and picked me up. I was shaking. I sat on the nearest chair and explained everything. They believed me, and we all worked together the rest of the shift, ensuring we were all safe. The shift soon came to an end, and nothing else had happened. I think it was because we were all together for the remaining hours. The manager came in for her day, and I explained everything. She wasn't shocked in the slightest. She stated that a few nurses had approached her with similar stories. She pulled me from my night shifts and replaced them with morning shifts, and I was really happy with that as it worked better for me and my family. Since that day, I have never done a night shift in the hospital. I mean, looking back on it now, I'm not shocked. It's a hospital, and a lot of people have passed there. I still feel the uneasy presence of someone following me every shift I work, and I cannot shake it.